This is the next flip. It's a 1.3 litre 2001 Ford Fiesta Flight. And in this video, I'm going to be covering how I got the car, what I did to fix it, and how I sold it, with hopefully a profit. So first things first, how much did this thing cost me and what's wrong with it? Well, it was 90 quid for a start. And for that money, you're probably thinking, oh, this thing's absolutely buggered. But she runs.
Not only does she run, but she's got 9 months MOT. A mere 65,000 on the clock.
And it's only got one thing that I need to fix. The problem itself lies with the electrics.
Which is a problem because I absolutely hate electrics.
The car also had a few advisories in the last MOT, all of which are pretty easy to do. So to further boost my resale value, I'm going to fix all of them and give it a fresh 12 months MOT with no advisories. Back to the electrics, the main problem. What am I actually going to do to fix it? Quite simply, bypass the car's electrical systems and hardwire in my own relay to power the cooling fan to prevent the car from overheating. A relay is basically a high voltage switch. It receives a signal from the ECU or gauge cluster to switch on or off because the higher electrical load of a fan, for example, can't pass through the ECU. These outputs are only rated for small currents, and if you tried to pull 20 plus amps through one of those, you'd get burnt up melted contacts, voltage drops, electrical failures, and potentially a fire risk. So hardwiring in a new relay is the easiest, quickest, cheapest, and safest fix. So first, I'm finding a low voltage ignition live. This is a circuit that's only live when the ignition is on. So that black and orange lead should be an ignition live. So if we put the ignition on now, purple is now live. How very interesting. All right, we can go for purple. So I've just got to make sure that that purple stays positive. Nice. Next, I've got to find the wire that's the live feed for the fan. I'm eventually going to cut this wire from the loom and wire it directly into the replacement relay. Okay, so we can tap into the purple one. So, purple wire there, purple wire there. Nice one. I've got everything I need to make this work. So this is a relay that I got from a van that I scrapped earlier on in the year, so I didn't have to pay for it. Small things like this can really affect profit margins when you're doing cheap flips. So armed with all the equipment and the limited knowledge that I did have about electrics, the car went under surgery and work commenced. Not sure how I'm gonna... Now, I won't bore you with the entire wiring process, so fast forwarding to the ground testing after everything had been wired up and hot to go. I was actually pretty nervous about this, given that it was my first time wiring a relay and electrics isn't my strong point, but here we go. The fan works! Yes! It's a huge relief that my relay actually works, but what I'm going to do now is just fire up the car, leave it to run for 10 minutes, and then check the temperature just to make sure that the thermostat isn't blocked or the coolant isn't circulating as it should. And I'm going to make sure it's the right temperature by plugging into the onboard diagnostics and then seeing what the actual coolant temperature is telling me. So to check the engine temp and do a full system scan for any problems that won't crop up on your dashboard, I'm using Carly. A huge thanks for sponsoring today's video. So in this example, I plug Carly into the car's OBD port, connect to my phone via Bluetooth and do a background check on the vehicle for any hidden codes. I can also look at live data from the engine to make sure the car doesn't overheat after my cooling system repairs. It even has a virtual mechanic to help you navigate the problem if you're struggling. And if you work on VW group cars, BMWs or Minis, it has an exclusive mileage check. It scans all the car's ECUs just to confirm the mileage is genuine, something you can't do with other code readers, which I even used when I flipped this BMW earlier this year. It's a massive step up from those cheap OBD scanners you can buy online. Carly gives you access to over 150,000 different diagnostics codes at manufacturer's level. And there's more being added in constant updates that are completely free. Now the beauty of Carly is that it makes the technical complex nature of cars easy to understand. Regardless of whether you're a complete beginner or seasoned pro, you can take back control of your car's health without having to rely on garages. So if you're flipping cars or even just investing in your own projects, you can diagnose, avoid, or at least anticipate some potentially very expensive headaches. It's a proper workshop tool that can fit in your pocket that's helped me diagnose issues in the past. It's literally a professional workshop level diagnostics tool designed for everyone. There's a link in the description if you want to grab one or learn more, but for now, I'm happy knowing this Fiesta isn't going to overheat anytime soon. But enough about Carly, time to get on with the next job.
Today, hopefully, I'm going to be tackling the rusty wheel hubs and the CV boots. If I get time, I'm going to have to adjust the rear brakes as well, but that might have to wait until tomorrow.
And then, in theory, it should be a clean 12 months MOT car, no advisories, which is what we want, because that's what's going to sell. So wasting absolutely no time getting straight into the next job. The car was jacked up in the air, wheels off, and I go to inspect the wheel arch to look around and see what tools I'm going to need for the job. And then straight off the bat, first problem.
Oh, Ford. Oh.
And that's when I saw what was attaching the brakes to the hub. It wasn't a regular bolt, it was an Allen bolt, and I needed a 5mm bit for it, a tool I just didn't have with me. There's no point whining about the situation that I was in. The next and most logical thing for me to do was to attack the rear brakes, which is exactly what I did. Getting the car in the air, getting the wheels off, getting the drum brake off, and cleaning it all up ready for adjusting. Yummy. Now the problem with these drum brakes was that the brake shoes were too loose, meaning that when you push the pedal out, the shoes don't engage the brakes properly. It's a simple fix to adjust them. In this case, you just move the shoes out a bit. Properly adjusted drum brakes should have slight resistance when spinning the wheel. This Fiesta had practically none. I'd actually never seen these style of drum brakes before, so it took me a minute to actually figure out how to adjust them. But once I did, I pushed the shoes apart and got the drum back on.
Just gonna put a little bit of dub D on here. Make it slide on nice and easy.
And that was until I couldn't put it back on because I pushed the shoes out too much.
Okay, I've made them too wide.
I took the drum back off, readjusted the brakes to loosen them off this time, and after I put it back on, it was too loose. And it went on like this for quite some time. Brakes on, brakes off, too loose, too tight, and that was the story for the rest of the drum brakes.
Okay, so it's done. I did go camera off for a bit because it really started to annoy me, but I've adjusted the brake. And finally, it doesn't just free spin. Time to do that one. There's not enough resistance in that rear wheel. It shouldn't be able to spin that freely.
The other side was no different. Getting the drum brake off was the easy part. Adjusting it, totally different ball game. It was another case of on, off, again and again and again until I finally got it right.
Yes. Look at that. Maybe what I've done for these two adjustment wise is a little bit too much, but over time, as the brake shoe wears out, I know that's not the perfect solution, but I need to adjust the brakes tight enough for the MOT, but not too tight that they're binding. So hopefully this is within that threshold. If it's not, I'm gonna have to adjust it there and then at the MOT, which I really don't want to do. So we'll wait and see.
So with the rear brakes ticked off the list, the next day brought the next set of challenges. Today, armed with my full toolkit, I once again attempted to tackle the front CV boots and rusty wheel hubs. To do that, first things first, get the wheel off and get access to the brakes. I also need to get the key to turn the wheel towards me as the steering lock was on. Turning the brakes towards you just makes them easier to work on.
Right.
Now this was the exact point that I accepted that I've lost the key. Retracing my steps and checking my camera bag, my key ring, rummaging through the front of my car, checking over my work area, checking my toolbox, checking under the car, but it was no use. Knowing that I'm low on time for this project, I throw in the towel. After an hour of searching, I take this photo, join a few Ford Fiesta Facebook groups and post it for breaking. Bearing in mind I got this car for £90, I can still turn a profit. If I can get £100 for the wheels to cover the costs, £250 for the running engine and gearbox, and maybe if I'm lucky, £200 to £300 for miscellaneous exterior and interior trim pieces. That's not a bad return on my investment, but that's a lot of work that I didn't want to do. So here's the plan.
Only got it. Found it.
we're back in business.
So happy I found this key.
Armed with a full arsenal of tools and wasting absolutely no time trying to get the brake discs and calipers off.
When you're used to working with a lift, working on the floor is just, oh, yay.
So after my brief whinge about working on the floor, I get cracking. And although I don't have to technically remove these, it will make my life a lot easier if I do. So for some reason, halfway through removing the brakes, I stopped to remove the hub nut and the rear pinch bolt on the hub. So after all those bolts were often loose and everything's accessible, always get rid of all the loose dirt and debris, otherwise when you spray WD-40, all that's going to do is just absorb all the oil instead of it going into the rust. A lot of people say that hitting things with a hammer doesn't really help. When you're trying to free rusted parts, vibration really helps. So to access the CV boots and to actually free the hub completely to get it cleaned up, I had to get the drive shaft out. And I won't lie, I did have slight PTSD from the last project. I did not want to have to go through that ordeal again.
You know what, I was really hoping that drive shaft would sort of just pop out, but it definitely is not going to do that.
So I tried to get the drive shaft loose from the hub by hitting the side of it and by tapping the front of it gently so as to not damage any threads.
There we go. So there we go, that is the advisory. The cracks in the CV joints, the CV boots even, and the fact that this hub is corroded. I obviously haven't got a new hub to replace it, but I am going to get rid of all the rust, clean it, treat it and respray it so it won't corrode any further.
Now annoyingly, I would have to take the CV joint off just to get the boot off as I didn't have the pneumatic tool for changing them. So taking both the clips off the CV boot, I once again got to work with a hammer trying to pop the CV joint off. But nothing comes easy in this world, and of course, I had a major cock up.
Oh, bollocks. The CV joint is popped out on the gearbox side. Trying to knock this one off. Oh my days. Right, I'm gonna try and fix that issue before I go forward.
So at this point, I was at a major crossroad in the project. With the CV joint not coming off and now another problem to fix, I could either put it all back together and sell as is, or carry on with the fix with additional costs and the uncertainty of more potential problems. Not forgetting that I haven't even touched the other side yet.
Very reluctantly, I've had to make a decision. I'm gonna fix the inner CV joint that's popped out, i.e. just pop it back in, put it all back together, wash it, clean it, sell it as is. So let's put this thing back together.
Thankfully though, the reinstall didn't cause me too much hassle. The inner CV joint literally just slotted back into place, and after everything was cleaned up and greased, everything went back together nice and easy, with the exception of the hub and the strut. That did cause me a bit of grief. Getting those two things aligned is hard enough when the car is in the air on a lift, let alone on the ground. But once they were eventually aligned, with a little bit of help from the hydraulic jack, a hammer and some WD-40, the two slid into place with ease. And at this point, my GoPro did die, so that's all we're getting mechanically in this video. But more importantly, the car is ready for sale, albeit in dire need of a wash.
So now that it's all back together, and I've decided not to fix the advisories, or the rest of them at least, and not to MOT them, now it's time for the big clean.
We start off by hoovering and then wiping down all the surfaces. And moving on to the outside, this thing was absolutely caked in mud.
It's amazing as well what one wash would do to a car. Look at this. Look how ugly that is. And then we go across to this side and it's just completely transformed the car.
So after both sides of the car was done, it was time for the advert. Starting off as per usual with a startup video and a full walk around so the potential buyer can get a full view of the car, followed by more generic photos of the car. And for some reason I didn't take the photos of the interior, which I usually do. But moving on. So usually I'd give it a big chunky description, but this one doesn't really have a lot of service history, and when I say not a lot, I mean none. So I just advertised as good points and put it up for $7.95. And now we wait. But it wasn't long before I had my first lowball at 500 quid. We then had one person who arranged a viewing with me and then failed to tell me that they weren't going to turn up. And then finally, Frank hit me up. It was just a short exchange of words, which I was skeptical about, but he ended up being a genuine buyer, and true to his word, he came down the next day for a viewing.
So here we are on the Beast for the final time. I've got someone coming to view it in a bit. I had it up for $7.95. Obviously he's going to try and get it down, but yeah, we'll see how much it sells for.
So after Frank turned up and had a good look around the car, he decided that it just wasn't for him. There were a few things that weren't quite right apparently. But when you're paying less than 800 quid for a car, I mean, what do you expect?
So that was my first non-seller. No, I'm a bit annoyed it didn't sell, to be honest, but it is what it is. and that's the nature of the game. I've just got to re-advertise it, potentially even drop the price, who knows. So I dropped the price to 650 quid, renewed the ad, and literally within minutes, Mel appears. I liked her. She was straightforward, no nonsense, literally the perfect buyer. And half an hour later, the car was back in the firing line, and at the pre-agreed price of £600, my humble Ford Fiesta, Daisy as I called her, was on to her next chapter of life. So the cost breakdown. The car cost me £90, which did include delivery as the seller lived local to me. I ended up buying around £15 worth of wires and fixtures and fittings from Halfords, which brings my total costs up to £105. And with it selling for £600, it left me with a whopping £495 profit for the day's work, making it by far the most profitable and easy flip to date. I've done loads of these on my channel now, so feel free to check them all out. But I just want to say thank you for watching. I've got loads of projects lined up, so hopefully I'll see you in the next one.